how Grandpa and Uncle Louis came over from Italy.
Right.
Grandma was
Separately. They didn't come together.
They weren't.
okay. They came from Modugno.
They're
Modugno.
both from
Okay.
Madrid.
How old were they, and what happened?
My
when
dad
they
was
came over?
15 years old.
Did they know each other from Modugno?
Well, sure. They
Yeah,
were
oh,
they
yeah.
were friends in
Yeah.
Modugno.
And
They
Louis
was-
was, what, a year older, I think, was he?
maybe, but
But he came later.
But he came later. My dad came over when he was 15 years old.
With
In,
an
in
uncle.
'99, he was. I mean, in well, 15 years. He 1914. 1914 he came over, and then he
didn't have to go
he worked at a hotel
In Cincinnati.
in Cincinnati, or was it Toledo?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, okay. And then he,
As an elevator boy.
He found out Louis was in Iowa or something like that. He got how he got to Iowa. I don't know how he got to Iowa, but anyhow, they went from Iowa to Chicago. They worked on the railroad, and they finally found their way back into Waukesha because they knew some people from Waukesha. They lived in Waukesha, and they could get a job in a foundry. At that time, we had up-team foundries.
Oh, yeah.
We had
a lot of blue collar
International
jobs.
Harvester. We had Grady Foundry. We had the Motor Works. We had
Alloy products.
Products. We had Quality Aluminum. Lot of jobs available for.
And they
people
had
that
heard
wanna
that
work.
this Italian lady was taking in boarders. And they both went there and stayed with Mrs. Sasso.
Yeah.
And that's when they met Mom and Aunt Mary,
Who lived just down the street, really.
who lived just down the street from them, yeah.
And so they got married, and Dad worked for my grandpa in the tavern. Then he and Tom, my mother's older brother, opened a tavern down the street, which was the precursor of the Como. My dad sold out,
No.
or Tommy sold out his half to my dad because there wasn't enough business for both of them. There
Right.
enough income for both of them.
Yeah.
Then they had an apartment above the tavern. And then later on, he built 20 rooms, and the old apartment, another 6, had 26 rooms in a hotel called the Working Man's Hotel. Catered to all tradesmen, bachelors, and so forth.
Veterans,
Just like the
guys
newspaper
from the
said.
war, veterans, and all that stuff.
And Louis, in the meantime, opened up a cigar store
Cigar store.
on Gasper between Main Street and the Avalon. There's just a narrow street there, and it was Reno's. And that developed into a tap, or another tavern.
Tavern.
Later on, when my dad's brother Jimmy came over from Italy, Louis took him in and gave him a job, and they worked together. Jimmy worked as a bartender for Louis. And Louis moved when Louis moved out of the main building downtown. They went directly to Main Street, didn't they? Bought a house on Main Street.
Yeah.
That's where they stayed forever.
Yeah, on Main Street. Uncle Jimmy lived right across the street
Right
from
across
him.
the street, yeah.
And he started
Jimmy's Grotto.
Jimmy's
Grotto, which was just a
Shack.
out like an outhouse, but a glorified outhouse. And you couldn't sit in there to eat or anything like
Oh,
that.
you had to order everything
You had to
at the
order
window.
from the outside, like you do
The drive-in.
like a drive-in or something like that. And he sold Italian sausages and Italian beef sandwiches, and then finally went into to pizzas, and that's how he got his start. And
After high school, you all went different ways.
Yeah. I went away to school. I went to, oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you.
I work on tips.
Okay. I went to
Thanks,
McMurray down in Jacksonville, Illinois. And these two were still in high school. Joey used to write me a letter, and he said, if you need any money, put an X in the corner, right-hand corner, because Mama reads all your letters. So if you write to me, just put an X in the right-hand corner. I'll send you some money.
I always had money.
You
I always had money.
You stole it all.
Well, no. I worked in foundries. I worked in
You have no idea how
paper
many
route
jobs we had.
yeah, and then when we were in high school, Paul was a good golfer, and he'd hang around with one of the pros, and he didn't do much work. but he didn't have much money either, and you know, I was always giving him some money.
You're
here
always
and there.
generous, yeah, you're always
And, and that's how that worked out.
How,
And you graduated from McMurray, and then you
She went to
worked,
Nebraska.
you worked for
I worked for Lee Larson
Lee Larson.
Lee Larson,
That's
yeah.
where you met Sharon.
in the
wasn't it?
customer relation department,
What was Lee Larson?
Lee Larson was an
Outdoor
outdoor
advertising.
advertising agent.
You remember all those signs that
company.
you see?
Oh,
that-
sure.
Built and put up outdoor, and Sherman was the director of operations, and he would go into the, and out in the field and talk to the farmers and everything, and rent the space
Went to space.
to put the
I never knew that.
signs up, yeah.
then did Dad go, then Dad went into the service?
Dad went into the service. He got a letter one time. We were in Lansing, Michigan, and he was putting up an, what do you call it? God, I can't think of the name of it, but different, for Minnesota Mining, he was putting up different stores and buildings and stuff all over the states and everything for these outdoor advertising company. And we were living in Lansing, Michigan, and had gotten this darling apartment, upstairs flat. The lady that owned it was a very wealthy widow, and she put in first Swedish carpeting in for us and just made it just wonderful. And I was so happy there. And one time, it's another story, but one time then Western Union called, and I picked up the telephone, and it said, Lieutenant Sherman Cooley, and by direction of the president, you are ordered back to such and such. And I put down the phone and I said, Sherman, you got to go into the Army. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, that was somebody on the phone from Western Union said you got a telegram saying, by direction of the president, you ordered back TDN, blah, 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 and all these numbers. He says, that they must be writing me about my insurance or something. And I said, well, if I were you, I'd go down and, they said you could go down and pick that up. So if you remember the Capitol in Lansing, a great big wide street, and I'm parked over here waiting for him, and he goes over to the Western Union, and he comes out, and he's reading this as he's walking across the street, and his mouth's wide open. They're directing him back into service. He got his orders to go back, see, because he had what they call critical MOS, which means a critical profession. Specialty. So we had to go back in. So remember, Joey, you came up.
Claire Jones and I, we moved with Uncle Jimmy's truck.
Yeah. Uncle Jimmy's truck.
Yeah.
And that's when I had the miscarriage. Remember, I threw that rug over the top of the balcony down to you guys, so you didn't have to roll it down. And right after that, I had a miscarriage.
Did you? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. I was so mad at Dr. Paul Campbell. I thought it was all his fault.
Yeah, I was ready to go to Michigan State.
Yeah.
I was going to go to Michigan
Yeah.
State.
Dr. Campbell said you shouldn't feel that way. That kid wasn't there right, or it wouldn't have miscarried.
That's what I always told my patients.
Yeah.
Not every seed you plant comes up
Yeah.
perfect fruit.
How did you meet Carol?
I met Carol at Marquette. She was in my my Spanish class, and of course I just got back from overseas. I was in the service for 3 years, and I hadn't had Spanish since 1951, 1949.
And then you probably flunked it.
So no, I passed first semester Spanish, but being away 3 years, I didn't remember any Spanish. So I went to my instructor and I told him, I says, I just got out of the service, and I says I had Spanish in 1949. I says I don't remember a thing. I says all I need is a passing grade. Will you just pass me? I'll come to class every day when I'm supposed to come to class. I'll pay attention. I just need a passing mark. I don't care if it's a D or whatever it is. And he said okay. So Carol sat. I think she sat in front of me, and I used to hand her my paper, and she used to fill in the. She used to fill in the things
He
for
never
me.
did anything straight.
No, I cheated all my life.
And he's proud of it, that's
Except
what
for-
makes me
except
so
for
mad.
the
So
IRS.
I got to know her, and we went out for pizzas and stuff like that, and then when I went to we went to Louisville. I was on a tennis team. We went to Louisville, Kentucky, for a spring tennis, and I let her use my car. I had a 54 Chevy convertible, beautiful car, and I let her use it while I was gone. When she got it, she cracked it up.
Should have had your first clue then.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's but that's
Another story.
and then when I got out of school, I went with her to. She lived in East Lansing, and I went to East Lansing, and of course we dated all through that year, and I went to East Lansing, and I got an apartment, and just to be near her, and then. I asked her to marry me, and she said she would, and
And she did.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was in 55.
How about you and Elena, Uncle Paul?
Yeah, because I was gone all that time, so I didn't know what was
Yeah,
going
right.
on in the family.
Right.
You can't hear very well.
Summer vacation, when I was at Marquette, at the country club, I met a doctor, Nat Schlossman. And we kind of gravitated towards each other, and he wanted me to work for him because his x-ray technician was leaving, and so I said, fine. So I went to his office, and the technician taught me how to take x-rays and so forth, so I worked for Schlossman
I know.
for that whole summer. Meantime, Elena, my future wife, was on summer vacation from Milwaukee down her because her family was in Mexico. Where she lived in Mexico City, but she came up here for college. But then this particular summer, she stayed with her grandmother on West Avenue, and then Herman Salin hired her as a cashier at Walgreens drugstore, and they had a big lunch counter and all kinds of merchandise, and it wasn't just a drugstore. Anyway, I worked upstairs at Walgreens for Dr. Schlossman, and we closed the office from 12 to 2. So I go down to Walgreens at the lunch counter and have lunch this one day, and I go to pay my tab at the cashier's desk, and there's Elena, new girl in town. I'm eyeing her over, and I like what I saw. Paid my tab. Eventually, I got to talking to her, and I was going with a girl, not going with her, but a Mersey Gayhagen. She
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
park
From Wauwatosa.
park director or something.
She lived in Elmgrove.
I take Mersey to lunch from 12 to 1, and then I pick up Elena and take her to lunch from 1 to 2. Anyway, so that's how we met at Walgreens. We started dating for the whole summer, and it blossomed into a great love. We've been married 60 years next month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mom, you
You know,
know,
in the meantime, while you guys were in Lansing, I went into the Navy, and so, geez, I went to Florida, and then I went to Malta. I was out of the country for 2 years.
You remember we were
So-
coming back from Notre Dame?
Yeah, when I was at Great Lakes.
You were at Great Lakes.
My wife will never forgive you for that.
Yeah, and
We had-
the whole tennis team.
We had a little set of quarters at the hospital. I was just, I think I was an intern.
Or JG or something.
We had a kitchen about half the size of this room, a living room the other half, and one bedroom and a little toilet. He pops in one day with, an army of tennis players, and Elena's making pancakes. They want something to eat. Elena's making pancakes. There must have been a pile that high for these guys. It just popped in with the tennis team.
She said she'd never forgive you.
She'll never forget that.
I was there another time when you got a call that this girl was going to deliver a baby,
One of my patients was in labor.
and you said to me, says, you ever watch the delivery? I says, no. I says, he said, would you like to come? I said, yeah, I'll come. So
I brought him over to the delivery room with me. And put him in a scrub suit,
Yeah.
gave him a cap and a mask.
as soon as I saw the delivery, I fainted.
I took him into the delivery room. I sat him over here in the corner. I said, just
Boom.
stay there. Just stay there. And While I'm going through all this, all of a sudden, bang! Turn around, he knocked over the instrument table. Just passed out.
What was the best memory growing up?
Oh, gee. My best memories were those Sunday dinners. We always had Sunday dinners.
And we always had to be
We went
dressed.
to church, we were all dressed up, we'd sit, and Mom would make
Oh,
tons of food.
chicken,
How she ever did it
And
pasta.
We'd sit at this dining room. The only time we used the dining room was on Sunday,
and Thursday night,
and we sit there
Sunday and
we'd
Thursday
sit there
night.
for 2-3 hours,
yeah.
and the food.
And how Mom did it, I don't know.
I don't
And
know
went to
either.
Mass too in the morning. She'd
Yeah.
come home and she'd have pies baked, and she'd make roast chicken and dressing, and I mean, fabulous meals.
Those are the harmonious times.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we lived.
Nobody got blamed for anything. We all
Yeah.
had a good time.
We all, yeah,
Once in a while, we'd have a guest, like
yeah.
Well, everything was always okay. You could read you could read about it in her diaries.
My mother.
Oh,
Yeah.
My mother wrote in her diary every single day of her life, and she had the best kids that ever were born. 3 kids who never did anything wrong, and I remember sitting there one night after Mom had gone, reading the diary, and I read about some incident, and I said to my dad, who was sitting next to me by the fireplace, I said, Daddy, I read it, and I said, I don't remember that happening. When was that? And he says, honey, you got to remember, your mother wrote things the way she wanted them to be, not the way they really were.
Where is that diary?
I've got them all downstairs in a box.
Really?
Yeah.
I have to
You
read
should
it
look through them
sometime.
while you're here.
I have to
Yeah.
read it sometime.
How about your best memories?
Me?
They're all good.
Yeah, I do.
I had good memories.
I thought Christmas days were always great, weren't
Christmas,
they?
we had Christmas Eve, you'd sing at Mass, and then we'd go to Aunt Mary's and have some sweets and everything, and go home, and then next day we'd open our presents, and I'll remember the first year you were married to Carol. I don't know if you were married to her or you had to go up there for Christmas, and we were also sad because you weren't going to be with us for Christmas, but you left notes for everybody.
Yeah.
It was a treasure
where,
hunt.
where you could find something.
Yeah,
I was home on a leave.
It was a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was $100 bill for each one of her, something
Something like that.
atrocious.
And, what the hell was I going to tell you?
What was your best memory?
Best memories.
My best memories. I think my fun days at Buckner Park. I used to just love summers and the swimming pool, and my friends were always there, and the boys would be playing tennis, or Father Suchek and Father Barris would be playing tennis, and my mother would bring them over a pitcher of lemonade, but it really
Yeah.
wasn't just lemonade she had in there for them. And then she'd put notes in the refrigerator. Boys, please don't touch this. This is for our supper. You know, because Harley would come over and wreck Nagel and Tobin, all the kids and everything. Had a lot of, they were always welcome, but kind of,
Yeah.
you know, we had good times.
My mom had a parakeet.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she taught the parakeet to had pretty good vocabulary.
Yeah, I gave it to her for
And
Christmas. Corky.
and Corky. And the parakeet would talk just like,
Sound like your voice.
yeah, sound like pretty much like your voice. Anyhow, she taught him to say Father Suchek, Father Barris, Father Suchek. Sonny, get up.
Pretty bird.
He's laying on the couch and he's got to get up and
Sonny,
go to
get up.
school or something. And the bird would say, Sonny, get up, Sonny, get up, Sonny. Father Suchek, bullshit.
And then Corky would say, birds don't talk.
Yeah, birds
Bullshit,
don't.
bullshit, bullshit.
Pretty bird.
And Mother was sick at that time. She had Corky, and she was up in bed. It was after surgery and everything, remember? And Corky, she whistled for Corky to come up or called for Corky, and we had a
flew out the
soffit.
window.
No, we had a soffit there.
She hit
As
the-
it went up, and Corky hit that
That
soffit.
was the other one.
She's coming down.
And knocked himself out.
Came down the stairway. Didn't clear.
Okay,
didn't
but
clear the wall.
she had another one then. She got another parrot.
But it was
parrot,
not
parakeet.
like-
And you know those windows above. You know how the living room was. There was the fireplace.
Yeah.
Okay, and he had the that small screen TV set, and there was 2 windows on each
Yeah,
side of
above
Bookcases.
the, above
bookcases, yeah. And that was open, and the bird flew out of there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That must have been the second time she had. that
Yeah,
bird, huh?
yeah.
But I know she felt.
Yeah, I remember now that
Yeah.
bird
Story.
we hit
That's
his head
soft,
on it,
as
yeah.
it was going up.